He was massive. With those three words, actress and filmmaker Sondra Locke ignited both curiosity and controversy in her 1997 memoir. To the casual reader, it might sound like she was describing Clint Eastwood's towering physical frame. But for Locke, those words meant something much deeper. They weren't just about his height, or the way he could command a room with a single glance. They were about the magnitude of his power in Hollywood, his influence, his control, his shadow that loomed so large over her life, her career, and her very identity, that breaking free from it would become one of the greatest struggles of her lifetime. This is not just the story of Clint Eastwood's former partner. It's the untold truth of Sondra Locke, an actress who arrived in Hollywood as a small-town girl from Tennessee, who was nominated for an Academy Award in her very first film, who fought to be recognized as more than Clint's girlfriend, and who paid a heavy price for daring to speak out. Her life was a balancing act between brilliance and betrayal, success and sabotage, love and heartbreak. And her memoir, The Good, the Bad, and the Very Ugly, became a bold testimony that peeled back the glamorous mask of Hollywood to reveal its darker undercurrents. In this video, we'll explore her full journey, her small-town beginnings, her breakout stardom, her turbulent relationship with Clint Eastwood, the lawsuits that shook Hollywood, her courageous battle against illness, and the lasting impact she left behind. Because Sondra Locke wasn't just telling her story. She was exposing an entire system, and the truth she revealed about Clint Eastwood and about Hollywood itself was, in her words, massive. Sondra Louise Smith, later known to the world as Sondra Locke, was born on May 28, 1944, in Shelbyville, Tennessee. Growing up in a small southern town during the 1940s and 50s, Locke's childhood was marked by both simplicity and struggle. Her mother was very young when she had her, and her stepfather worked in construction. Money was often tight, but Locke quickly discovered she had something that couldn't be bought: imagination. She was a bright, determined girl who stood out in her community. From an early age, Locke found escape in books, music, and film. She wasn't just watching movies, she was studying them, absorbing the craft of acting and storytelling. Unlike many of her peers, she dreamed of something bigger than a quiet Southern life. After high school, she briefly attended Middle Tennessee State University, but her ambitions were already pulling her elsewhere. In her memoir, Locke reflects on those early years as a period where she learned resilience, skills she would need when she stepped into the harsh, competitive world of Hollywood. Locke's true breakthrough came in 1967, when she landed the role of Mick Kelly in the film adaptation of Carson McCullers' classic novel, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. She was just 23 years old with almost no Hollywood connections, but her performance was breathtaking. Her portrayal of a sensitive, artistic young girl earned her critical acclaim and even an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. This was no small achievement. For many, it was a signal that a new star had arrived. But despite this career-defining moment, Hollywood wasn't always kind to Sondra Locke. The late 1960s and early 1970s were still a rigid time for women in the industry. Actresses often found themselves typecast, and their careers shaped less by their own choices and more by the male-dominated studio system. Locke, though talented, often found herself being cast in roles that did not reflect the full range of her ability. She once described the industry as a place that wanted women to be beautiful accessories rather than complete artists. Still, her Oscar nomination opened doors. Locke began appearing in more films, including Willard in 1971, a horror thriller that became a surprise box office hit. Her performance showed her versatility, proving she could step outside traditional Hollywood starlet roles. It was around this time that her path would soon cross with Clint Eastwood, a meeting that would forever alter her career, her personal life, and ultimately her legacy. In 1975, Sondra Locke's life took a dramatic turn when she met Clint Eastwood while auditioning for the outlaw Josie Wales. Their chemistry was undeniable, and soon Locke became a regular presence both in Eastwood's films and in his personal life. What started as an on-screen collaboration quickly transformed into a 14-year relationship, one that was as glamorous as it was turbulent. Together, they created some of the most iconic action thrillers of the era. Locke often played strong, independent women who could hold their own alongside Eastwood's tough guy persona. Off-screen, however, their partnership was more complicated. Though widely perceived as a Hollywood power couple, their relationship was marred by secrecy and imbalance. Locke gave up many of her own career opportunities, while Eastwood remained the dominant figure, professionally and personally. Locke later revealed in her memoir that what the public saw was only the surface. Behind closed doors, she often felt stifled and overshadowed. Eastwood's influence was immense, not just in Hollywood, but in Locke's life. As she put it, he was massive, not only in fame but in the way he could shape or break someone's future. Despite the challenges, this era was pivotal for Locke. It gave her visibility and roles that might never have come otherwise. Yet, it also laid the foundation for the battles that would define her later years. In 1997, nearly a decade after her painful split from Clint Eastwood, Sondra Locke released her memoir, The Good, the Bad, and the Very Ugly. The title alone was a warning. This was no ordinary Hollywood tell-all. In the book, Locke pulled back the curtain on their 13-year relationship, and what she revealed was explosive. She described Eastwood as controlling and manipulative, a man who, in public, played the role of the rugged gentleman, but behind closed doors could be cold, distant, and even cruel. One of her most shocking claims was that Eastwood had secretly arranged vasectomies, never wanting to have children with her despite pretending otherwise. She also wrote about his infidelities, affairs she discovered while she was still living with him, and the emotional toll of trying to hold on to a man who seemed impossible to please. But the memoir wasn't just about Eastwood. Locke also detailed her battles with Hollywood's entrenched sexism, explaining how women were often treated as disposable, valued only for their looks or their association with powerful men. The book was raw, unapologetic, and deeply personal. Critics were divided. Some called it bitter revenge, while others hailed it as a brave and necessary exposé. For Locke, it was catharsis. After years of silence, she finally had her voice back, and she wasn't afraid to use it. After years of being defined by her association with Clint Eastwood, Sondra Locke began carving out her own creative path. In the mid-1980s, she transitioned into directing, a bold move at a time when very few women were trusted behind the camera in Hollywood. Her directorial debut came with Rat Boy, 1986, a quirky, unconventional film that many critics praised for its originality, even if it didn't achieve commercial success. Locke herself admitted the story was unusual, a mix of fantasy, satire, and human drama, but it proved her determination to tell stories on her own terms. She went on to direct two more films, Impulse, 1990, a crime thriller starring Teresa Russell, and Do Me a Favor, 1997. Both projects reflected her eye for complex, layered characters and her desire to showcase narratives outside of the typical Hollywood formula. But breaking free from Eastwood's shadow wasn't easy. Despite her talent and vision, Locke struggled to find consistent directing opportunities. Many doors that should have been open remained firmly shut, and as she would later reveal, there was a reason for that. By the late 1980s, Locke's personal and professional relationship with Clint Eastwood had completely unraveled. What followed was not just a breakup, but one of the most bitter, public, and legally explosive separations in Hollywood history. Locke filed a palimony suit against Eastwood in 1989, claiming that he had persuaded her to give up her career to support his, promising lifelong financial and emotional partnership. She alleged that after their split, Eastwood systematically sabotaged her chances of working in Hollywood. One of the most infamous revelations came during her lawsuit with Warner Brothers. She argued that the studio had given her a supposed development deal, but in reality, it was a fake arrangement funded secretly by Eastwood himself, designed to keep her from making films. No scripts were seriously considered. No projects were green-lit. It was, essentially, a professional dead end. The lawsuits dragged on for years, exposing the politics, power struggles, and quiet retaliation mechanisms that operated behind the scenes in Hollywood. Locke won settlements, but the damage to her career was irreversible. Casting directors and studios, wary of her reputation as someone who had gone against the system, stopped calling. Despite her talent as an actress and emerging voice as a director, Sondra Locke became an outsider in the very industry she had once been celebrated in. Her story, filled with promise, betrayal, and resilience, ultimately shined a harsh light on the way Hollywood treated women, especially those who dared to challenge powerful men. But perhaps the most heartbreaking chapter of Sondra Locke's life was her battle with health issues. In the late 1980s, at the height of her struggles with Clint Eastwood and Hollywood itself, Locke was diagnosed with breast cancer. She underwent a double mastectomy and chemotherapy, a grueling process that would have broken many. Yet, Sondra faced it with the same resilience she had shown throughout her career. Even after surviving breast cancer, she was later diagnosed with ovarian cancer. It was another devastating blow, yet Locke fought bravely, never losing her sharp wit or her determination to keep moving forward. She rarely spoke about her illnesses in detail, choosing instead to keep the focus on her work and her fight for justice in Hollywood. In November 2018, Sondra Locke passed away at the age of 74 due to cardiac arrest related to her cancers. News of her death was not widely reported at first, a quiet end for a woman who had once stood in the glaring spotlight of Hollywood's brightest stage. But for those who knew her story, her passing was a reminder of a life lived with courage, defiance, and an unyielding will to be heard. Sondra Locke's health battles may have taken her from this world, but her story, her resilience in the face of betrayal, illness, and systemic silencing, remains an inspiration. She was more than just Clint Eastwood's partner, more than Hollywood's cautionary tale. She was a woman who fought until the very end. Sondra Locke's story is more than just a footnote in Hollywood history. She was a woman who fought, often alone, against one of the most powerful men in the industry and an entire system that preferred silence over truth. Her career may not have reached the towering heights it deserved, but her courage left behind a different kind of legacy, one of defiance, honesty, and resilience. In the years after her passing in 2018, audiences began to revisit her work with new eyes, recognizing her not just as Clint Eastwood's partner, but as a gifted actress, a determined director, and a woman whose voice refused to be silenced. Her story reminds us of a timeless lesson. Hollywood may shape reputations, but the truth, once spoken, has the power to outlast even the brightest spotlight. And that was the untold story of Sondra Locke. If you found this deep dive compelling, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more hidden Hollywood stories you won't hear anywhere else. Until next time, this is Vintage Spotlight, where the secrets of classic Hollywood come alive. That was today's story under the silent spotlight. If you enjoyed uncovering Hollywood's forgotten past, leave a like and subscribe for more vintage tragedies, mysteries, and untold legends. Until next time, keep the reel turning.